Thinking about moving to Wyoming? Well, if you are, you should probably watch this video of 10 things you should know before you move there. Now, these aren't the standard things that have been done to death on other YouTube channels. We know the wind is crazy. We know the locals are tired of Californians. We know Jackson is expensive. There's no need to go over those again. What we're looking at is the things that might blindside you when you get there. All right, let's take a look. Number 10, no state income tax, has an energy sector roommate. Wyoming has no personal state income tax, which sounds wonderful because it is wonderful. The part people skip is how the state pays for everything instead. Coal, oil, natural gas, mineral royalties, and investment earnings carry a large part of the load. Wyoming's energy and mineral economy has produced billions in state and local revenue, but those revenues can rise and fall with production and commodity prices. In January 2026, state forecasters came out and said that their severance tax, which is basically what states charge to pull stuff out of their ground like minerals, oil, whatever. Well, it looks like 2026 is supposed to be a down year. In other words, your paycheck may avoid the tax collector, but the state budget still rides a mechanical bull named natural gas prices. But regardless, that no state income tax draws people into Wyoming. Talk to anyone if they're thinking about moving to Wyoming, that's one of the first things they're going to talk about. So more of your money is going to stay in your pocket. If natural gas prices and oil prices go down and they're not getting that much for pulling it out of the ground, schools and local services will be cut and state spending will definitely slow down. That's usually when projects get put on hold for a really long time. You know, they're in the middle of putting in a new park and then they realize all the money's going away next year. It's not going to be half of what they thought it was going to be. So they pull the plug on the new park. If you're moving there to work one of those jobs in mining or gas, good for you. They're well-paying jobs. You got to work really hard. But if the economy of natural gas and minerals kind of fluctuates, you may be laid off. So make sure there's something else to do in whatever town you're moving to in case that happens. My suggestion to everyone right now is whatever you do, whatever's going on in your life, like you move to Wyoming, that's a great idea for a Instagram page or a YouTube page. Now follow me on this. Work on it a little bit as a hobby, and if you do get laid off, you have something already in the works. It may not be a bunch, but when you've been laid off for a couple months and you can collect a good $500 a month, that helps out a lot. Now you could build on there, especially if you're laid off. You're gonna have plenty of time to work on it. Number 9, affordable Wyoming has a housing asterisk the size of Devil's Tower. Most people already know Jackson is very expensive. Jackson has reached the point where the gift shop may soon offer mortgage applications besides postcards. Yeah, Jackson, Wyoming, in case you don't know, has become like this place where Silicon Valley millionaires and Hollywood elites have a second home or their winter home or whatever they want to call it. And this has just put the housing prices on a rocket ship and pointed it straight up. They're actually having a housing shortage for rich people right now. They all want that perfect log cabin or, Western style house, and there's just not enough to go around right now. But what surprises people is that housing shortages also affect ordinary Wyoming communities. In 2026, the Wyoming Business Council described housing as critical infrastructure and reported that residents were using words such as expensive, limited, dire, and crisis when talking about housing. Employers in smaller communities are struggling to recruit workers because those workers can't find a suitable place to live. Cheap land somewhere on a map doesn't automatically create affordable houses near jobs, hospitals, schools, and paved roads. Now, the plus side of this is small towns in Wyoming still offer reasonable prices compared to Colorado and Utah and really much of the West. My suggestion is research actual listings and rentals in your targeted town, not Wyoming's statewide median. Look in the towns. You just go to Zillow, poke around, and see what's on the menu. I mean, something might work for you, or at least you have an idea what's going on in that town. If you happen across a small town that has nothing but 800,000 and up, it's the type of place where everyone drives a Land Rover or a Mercedes SUV. If the homes are sitting around 300,000, 250,000, you and your 1998 F-150 will fit right in. Number 8, childcare is a problem. Wyoming's childcare shortage isn't merely a parenting inconvenience. State economic development officials described it as a workforce problem. It's a real problem. Keep in mind, this state has a population under 600,000, the entire state. Officials believe that about 10,000 working-age Wyoming residents can't go to work because of childcare. A lot of parents are moving into towns and cities and realizing that all the childcare places don't have any openings. You may land a good job and then discover that your toddler has been placed on a waiting list as long as a roller coaster at Disneyland. The number of providers they had in 2014 was 720 different facilities that would do childcare. In 2025, that number was down to 527. Rural communities are hit especially hard because centers have fewer customers, tighter margins, and trouble finding employees. More and more companies in Wyoming are having on-site childcare for parents that work for the company. The good news is a smaller community can offer a close relationship between families and the local providers, so that's always a good thing. The catch, there may be only a few providers, inconvenient hours, or no openings at all. If you're thinking about moving and you've got toddlers, you've got young children, and you're going to need childcare, make sure you do your research on this before you just move someplace and assume that there's going to be childcare. Contact childcare providers before accepting a job or signing a lease. Number 7, wonky healthcare insurance. Now, Wyoming's one of the few states that didn't adopt the Affordable Care Act's Medicaid expansion. The state's own 2026 health coverage guide showed that many of the non-disabled adults earning below the federal poverty level can fall into a coverage gap, earning too much for Wyoming's Medicaid, but too little to qualify for regular marketplace subsidies. Now, this really matters for freelancers, seasonal workers, early retirees, people between jobs, and anyone planning to build a business. Wyoming may be filled with a lot of good, friendly people and independent spirits, but independent spirits still occasionally need a colonoscopy. Now, if you don't fall in between the gaps, it's pretty regular. It's not like they're holding anything against you or it's much more expensive than other states. It's kind of normal. It's kind of average. It's just if you fall into that weird area, you're going to have a hard time getting healthcare coverage. Nothing like filling out paperwork and the guy looks at you and goes, "Oh, wow. Can you be a little more poor? Because you need to be a little more poor to get healthcare this year." It's just sad. Low-income adults without a qualifying category can face limited coverage choices. Or they just decide to skip healthcare and they're 59 years old with a bum hip or something like that. Number 6, winter road closures and logistic problems. In many states, snow just means leaving early and complaining about it at the office kitchen. In Wyoming, it can mean the interstate is physically closed. High winds, snow, crashes, and poor visibility kind of trigger things there. Brings up a lot of restrictions and closures. WYDOT, which is their Wyoming Department of Transportation, has warned that navigation apps may actually send people from, closed Interstate 80 onto a secondary road that's even more dangerous than the one they're leaving. That's an impressively modern way to freeze to death in a ditch, betrayed by an algorithm that insisted it was saving you 7 minutes. Now, the good news about this is WYDOT's pretty professional about this. They are excellent with road cameras, alerts, forecasts, and the Wyoming 511 system. The catch is work, medical appointments, flights, deliveries, and family plans can all be disrupted because of the roads in winter. Study your normal routes when you get there and determine whether they depend on one major highway or a mountain pass. Move there in the summer and just learn the roads. Spend a couple afternoons just driving around, and always keep some candles and a lighter inside your car in the winter. Yeah, if you light a candle or two inside a, more modern car that's insulated properly, it can keep you alive, stop you from freezing, that little tiny flame. You're not going to be all warm and cozy, but you'll probably survive. We don't get winters like that here in Oregon, at least where I am, but I always have some candles in my car and 2 MRE meals, the military meals, and a liter of water just in case. Yeah, make sure when you move there, if you do move to Wyoming, make sure during the winter you're paying attention to the WYDOT website or wherever they have the alerts for you. I don't want someone else to email me and tell me how one of my subscribers had passed away and they love my channel. I've had that happen to me like 4 times. Get it from like a family member, wife, or a son or something like that. Email, "My dad loved your channel. Thought you should know he passed away." I just don't want to get one. "Yeah, he loved your channel and he froze to death in his car trying to light 2 candles. Number 5, the local airport is basically a shuttle to Denver's airport. Wyoming has 9 commercial airports, but many communities have limited daily flights and depend on state assistance to keep the routes operating. Now, Wyoming has this thing called the Air Service Enhancement Program, and it defines critical services as roughly 2 or 3 flights per day and gives a top priority to funding routes that are in danger of disappearing. That means your nearby airport may be convenient when everything works, but it may also offer fewer backup options when a flight is canceled. Missing the morning flight can turn a simple business trip into an unexpected tour of every vending machine in the terminal. I tell people that all the time. I don't know how many people have told me they moved someplace and they had to move again because it was just too far away from the airports. That small rural town sounds great till you have to fly to New York for a meeting. Your coworkers in Chicago got on a flight and were there like 2 hours. You got up at 4 a.m., made it to the airport at 8 a.m. Your plane had problems, so you didn't leave till 1 p.m. and finally got to New York an hour after the meeting was over. Yeah, and regional airports also, they're a little more expensive than the big airports. I've noticed that a few times flying to Pennsylvania, going to a smaller regional airport, it's always going to be more expensive than if I were to just fly to Philadelphia or something like that. But overall, for what they have, several small Wyoming communities have direct access to major connection airports. Definitely compare routes, fares, parking, winter reliability, and drive times to Denver, Salt Lake City, Billings, or Rapid City. Number 4, wildlife is beautiful until it destroys the front of your car. Wyoming residents don't merely see wildlife on scenic drives. They see wildlife standing in the road while apparently considering several career options. Wyoming Game and Fish says drivers are involved in more than 7,600 wildlife collisions annually, with most involving deer. This isn't just a safety problem. It can affect vehicle repairs, insurance claims, nighttime driving habits, and the type of vehicle you feel comfortable owning. Animals never seem to carry liability insurance either. And I think that's rude, although several elk have appeared financially established. That being said, it's not all bad when it comes to the wildlife. Living near elk, pronghorn, moose, and deer is one of Wyoming's genuine pleasures. The catch is, dawn, dusk, migration season, and certain highway corridors require extra caution. Number 3, 911 doesn't always mean an ambulance will be there soon. In the Cowboy state's most remote communities, emergency response can involve more waiting than people expect. State health officials found that only 39% of the residents in the frontier areas live where ground ambulance response is under 9 minutes. About 51% fall into the 9 to 30 minute range, while nearly 10% live in areas where response can exceed 30 minutes. Yeah, so if you've got a health condition, this is not a place to live. Out there in the sticks, you got a better chance of finding a witch doctor than an actual doctor. Now, many smaller ambulance services also depend heavily on volunteers, and the state has said in recent years, volunteer participation is declining. I mean, Wyoming gives you plenty of land and plenty of breathing room, but during a medical emergency, you may suddenly wish your neighbors and the town were a little bit closer. I had a friend I was in the Army with, Kelly. He was like the paramedic on the life flights. I don't know if it was actually life flight, that's a business, but he was on a helicopter and used to go to remote areas if someone was injured or needed to get someplace quick. I'm sure he's retired by now. But yeah, you know, I talk about it all the time in these videos that if you've got a health concern, make sure you're close to a hospital. Retiring to the woods sounds very romantic, but as we all know, as you hit retirement age and start getting older, you need doctors more often. Number 2, not a lot of options when it comes to universities. Wyoming has a strong community college network, but the University of Wyoming in Laramie is the state's only 4-year university. They're only one of 3 states that only has one university. Delaware and Alaska. Delaware has some private ones, but as far as state ones go, that's it. Even Oregon has 7. Texas has over 30. California has over 30. And Wyoming's got 1. I'm not saying it's bad. Well, I mean, their football team colors are pretty bad. They're yellow and brown, which was the exact same colors I had in high school. It's not a uniform color. It's a bad situation in a restroom, I think. I actually was at a comedy club, and in the green room, they had a lava lamp where the little blurbs in the middle were brown and the other part was yellow. I was like, that's disgusting. But back to the University of Wyoming. This isn't really a big deal because they don't have a lot of people. So it's not like there's no room at the inn for your kid if you move to Wyoming. Just as a family, you don't have a lot of choices. I actually have 3: Laramie, online, or start packing. The good news is UW offers relatively affordable education, broad programs, and a traditional flagship university experience. So before moving, research UW, community college transfer paths, scholarship programs, and neighboring state tuition agreements. All right, before we get to number 1, if you feel like you're getting something out of this series, I'd appreciate it if you give these videos a big thumbs up. Really helps out with the algorithm. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, Wyoming's mental health numbers are quietly grim. The mountain scenery, the wildlife, the fishing, it's all great in Wyoming. What's not great is they got a mental health problem, and it's rarely talked about on relocation videos. The Wyoming Department of Health says that the state's rate of people who push their own off buttons consistently exceeds the national rate. The Cowboy state recorded 168 residents that gave themselves a self-imposed death sentence in 2024. And that is up from 156 in 2023. Although officials caution that the state's small population makes yearly totals look really bad, which it does, they say it's not as bad as it seems. This isn't something you turn into a punchline, so I'm not going to make any jokes about this. The reason I didn't say the actual act is because you'll get demonetized. I'm not making a joke. It's a really sad situation, and a lot of that has to do with the isolation in Wyoming. Long distances, limited local services, small support networks can be major concerns for people already dealing with things like depression, addiction, trauma, or simply loneliness. And it's a really sad situation. I have always thought loneliness is one of the worst things a person could have. I mean, I've always been surrounded by a huge family. I hug people. I know people. I make friends with whoever I can. So to someone like me, that is just the worst. I can't imagine living like that, just total loneliness. And that's a lot of people, besides the other problems, that's one of the things that make them, kind of go over the edge. It's too bad. Now, the hidden problem with this one is finding a provider may be the first challenge. Keeping regular appointments across long distances can be another. So in the end, if that's something you're dealing with, maybe Wyoming's not the state for you. So should you move to Wyoming? Maybe. Wyoming can be an excellent choice for people who value personal space, lower taxes, outdoor access, smaller communities, and a slower pace of life. It works especially well when you secure employment, reliable transportation, suitable healthcare access, and realistic expectations about distance. It becomes a tougher fit when you need specialized medical care, abundant job options, extensive childcare, multiple colleges, dependable winter travel, and big city conveniences. They just don't have them. I'd still recommend Wyoming to most people, though. 1111. That's right, resist. So if you break your dick or something, you gotta wait for an ambulance for 30 minutes or more. You might even have to get a life flight if you broke your dick. Wyoming's a great state if you don't mind hitting a moose on the highway. Laramie. Get it together. Pronghorn. You get the standard Wyoming wildlife like moose, elk, deer, bears. I don't know about wolves. I'm sure they're out there too. I know they are. But you're not going to get anything cool like Jimothy that they got in Seattle. He's that little raccoon that's a little messed up. It's going to... Hello? Jesus Christ, why does that keep doing that?